Imagine, if you can, the young Jacob, tired and lonely, resting in a deserted place with a stone as a pillow. As he sleeps, something extraordinary happens. A ladder extends from heaven to earth and angels ascend and descend on it. But why a ladder? Why was this specific symbol chosen to communicate the presence and communication between God and man? This is what we will discover in today's video. As usual, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and leave a like to help us with the YouTube algorithm. Jacob is a prominent figure in the Old Testament of the Bible. He is considered one of the sons of Isaac and Rebekah, and consequently, the grandson of Abraham. Isaac, father of Esau and Jacob, was aging and realized his time on earth was running out. He decided to bless his eldest son, Esau, before he died. However, Rebekah, the mother of Esau and Jacob, heard the conversation and, knowing that God had revealed to her that the blessing belonged to Jacob, devised a cunning plan. Esau, a skilled hunter, had gone out to hunt at his father's request. Taking advantage of Esau's absence, Rebekah instructed Jacob to bring 2 young goats from the flock so she could prepare Isaac's favorite dish. Additionally, she told Jacob to disguise himself as Esau by covering his smooth arms with goat skins to simulate Esau's hairiness. Initially hesitant, Jacob agreed to the plan and received the blessing from Isaac, who, deceived by the disguises and influenced by Rebekah's skillful manipulation, blessed Jacob, believing him to be Esau. The blessing included prosperity, dominion over his brothers, and the promise that those who cursed him would be cursed and those who blessed him would be blessed. When Esau returned from the hunt and discovered what had happened, he became furious and threatened to kill Jacob. Fearing for Jacob's life, Rebekah advised Jacob to flee to the house of Laban, his uncle, until Esau's fury subsided. This episode has significant consequences for Jacob. He gains the blessing and the birthright but also becomes the target of his brother's wrath. Jacob's decision to follow his mother's advice and flee sets off a journey full of significant events in his life. This phase of his story is recorded in chapters 28 to 31 of the book of Genesis. One of the most impressive events happens when Jacob is in the desert. At dusk, he decides to rest and uses a stone as a pillow. In this state of solitude and uncertainty, Jacob has an extraordinary dream. In the dream, Jacob sees a ladder extending from earth to heaven, with God's angels ascending and descending on it. The symbolism of the ladder is profound, representing the direct connection between the divine and the earthly, between heaven and earth. This image evokes the idea of a spiritual bridge linking the 2 realms. At the top of the ladder is God himself, who reveals himself to Jacob and renews the promises made to Abraham and Isaac. God assures Jacob that he will be with him, protect him on his journey, and bring him back to the promised land. The promises include multiplying Jacob's descendants, blessing all nations through them. Upon waking from the dream, Jacob is amazed and recognizes the holiness of the place, declaring, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it." He takes the stone that had served as his pillow, builds a pillar, anoints it with oil, and calls it Bethel, which means, house of God. This event of Jacob's ladder is crucial in Jacob's spiritual journey. It marks a divine encounter that transforms Jacob's perspective and understanding of God and his role in history. Jacob's ladder symbolizes divine accessibility, communication between heaven and earth, and sets the stage for the future experiences and challenges that will shape Jacob's life. Next, upon arriving in the land of Paddan Aram, where Laban lived, Jacob meets Rachel, Laban's younger daughter, and falls in love with her. He agrees to work 7 years for Laban in exchange for Rachel's hand in marriage. However, on the wedding day, Laban deceives Jacob and gives him his older daughter, Leah, instead of Rachel. Deeply in love with Rachel, Jacob agrees to work another 7 years to finally marry her. The relationship between Jacob, Rachel, and Leah is marked by rivalry and competition between the two sisters. Leah gives birth to several sons, while Rachel faces the anguish of infertility. Rachel finally gives birth to Joseph, bringing great joy to Jacob's life. During his time with Laban, Jacob accumulates significant flocks and prospers, despite Laban's tricks to manipulate his wages and retain part of his earnings. Realizing that the relationship with Laban had become tense and exploitative, Jacob decides to return to the land of Canaan, the land of his family. Jacob's flight from Laban is marked by more deceptions. He secretly leaves with his family and flock while Laban is absent. Laban pursues Jacob and confronts him about his abrupt departure. In the end, they make a pact, building a mound of witness called Galeed, which serves as a boundary between them, symbolizing that they would not cross it to harm each other. After deciding to return to the land of Canaan, Jacob's reunion with Esau, his older brother, becomes one of the most significant and emotional moments in his narrative. As reported in Genesis chapters 32 to 33, on the night before meeting Esau, Jacob sent his family and belongings across the Jabbok River while he stayed behind. During the night, Jacob finds himself wrestling with a man until daybreak. This mysterious and powerful man is understood by scholars and traditions as a manifestation of God. The struggle is intense, and Jacob refuses to let go of the man, seeking a blessing. During the struggle, the man touches Jacob's hip, leaving him with a limp. As daybreak approaches, Jacob asks for the blessing, and the man asks him his name. By revealing his name, Jacob is admitting his identity in history. Then the man changes Jacob's name to Israel, which means, he who struggles with God, or Prince of God. The name change to Israel is especially significant, as it marks a profound transformation in Jacob's identity. He is no longer just the deceiver but now is recognized as one who has struggled with God and men and has prevailed. It is a moment of surrender and renewal that will shape the rest of his story and the history of the nation of Israel. Finally, the great moment arrives. The encounter between Jacob and Esau is fraught with tension, considering Esau's threat to kill Jacob years earlier. Jacob sends gifts ahead as an attempt to appease his brother's anger. As they approach each other, Jacob bows down 7 times, a gesture of humility and submission. Surprisingly, Esau shows no hostility. Instead, he runs to meet Jacob, embraces him, and weeps. The reconciliation is complete, and the bitterness of the past seems to vanish in the face of the restoration of the brothers' relationship. Jacob and Esau decide to go their separate ways, and Jacob settles in Sukkot. There, he builds a house and shelters for his livestock. Later, he travels to Shechem, where he buys a piece of land and erects an altar, calling it God, the God of Israel. This act symbolizes Jacob's renewed commitment to God and the recognition that his journey is guided by divine providence. Jacob's ladder, a significant event in the Old Testament, carries rich symbolism that can be seen as a bridge between the Old and New Testaments, uniting the scriptures in a meaningful way. In the Old Testament, Jacob's ladder represents direct communication between God and humanity. In his dream, Jacob has a vision of a ladder that connects earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending. This image symbolizes God's proximity and the opening of a communication channel between the two realms. It is a promise of divine access, a spiritual link that transcends earthly barriers. Bringing this image into the New Testament, we find a remarkable parallel in Jesus' words in John, chapter 1, verse 51. Jesus refers to Jacob's ladder when he says to Nathanael, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open, and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." Here, Jesus presents himself as the ladder, the bridge between the divine and the human. This connection is profound and significant. By referencing Jacob's ladder, Jesus is affirming his identity as the fulfillment of the promises made in the Old Testament. He is the manifestation of the ladder that makes direct communication between God and humanity possible. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you made it this far, I believe I deserve your like and a comment with some feedback. Hugs and stay with God.